Hey family, in this video, I want to go over the change of address form with you, which is form 8822. You want to use this form to update your address with the Internal Revenue Service. This is one of the last things that people think to do when they move. All right. Now, whenever the IRS sends any type of communication, they will use the address that is on your last filed tax return. But what if you have back taxes and you haven't filed in 10 years? Or what if you just haven't filed in 6 years, but you've moved 3 times? Did you know that if the IRS finds your bank account, they can still levy it because they followed their due process and sent you notices? That's worst case scenario. But either way, we want to make sure that the IRS has the most up-to-date address for you on file. This Form 8822 is for individuals, or if we are looking at an estate or the return for a gift tax return or generation skipping transfer tax return. Okay. In this example, this is going to be for an individual, so I'm going to check this box here. Now, you'll notice this says if your last return was a joint return and you are now establishing a residence separate from the spouse with whom you filed that return, check here. So that would apply to people who have divorced since their last return or if they've just legally separated. All right. That lets the IRS know, hey, I don't want my information going to the same address as my former spouse. Because in this example, this isn't for a gift, estate, or generation skipping transfer tax return, we don't need to check box 2. Okay. So here, when we get to line 3A, we have the taxpayer's name. So we need to have first name, initial, and last name. And you have to make sure that this matches your last tax return, which should also match your most up-to-date Social Security card. And when I say most up-to-date, so when you get married, you may have changed your last name. If that is the situation here. A little bit later on the forum, you'll see where we can put any prior names. Okay. So we're going to, in this example, put Barack H. Obama, which is the first name, middle initial, last name, and the social security number of the taxpayer, right? The spouse's name we'll also put, which is Michelle L. Obama. And then we're going to also have her social security number. Now, if the taxpayer has any prior names, we want to make sure that we have that here. Okay. And then for the spouse, we put that information here. Now, I'll tell you right now, believe this is in read mode. I actually made a mistake when filling this out. This address should not be right here. This should be the spouse's prior names. So let me see if I can take this off. Good deal. Let me. All right. So for prior names, let's say that the Obamas had just gotten married. Does anyone know what Michelle Obama's prior name is? 1,000 bonus points for you if you do. Let me know down in the comments. So here we're going to put what the taxpayer's old address is. This is going to be what they had on their last return they filed with the IRS. So in this example for the Obamas, we're going to have 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Northwest, Washington, D.C., 2500. All right. Now, if we have two taxpayers who are newly married, we would have the old address right here, and then we would have the old address of the spouse. And that is if they're moving into a new residence together. So again, I apologize. I didn't notice until I was looking at this that I messed up some of the lines for the prior name and the old address. So here we have the taxpayer's old address. And if the spouse's old address is the same, we only have to fill it out on this line. But let's go back to the example of two newly married taxpayers. If the spouse had a different address as well, we would put that here. Because what that does, the IRS is going to go back and look at the old address that was associated with this taxpayer's name and social security number, and they're going to update that in their database. Okay? So the new address is going to go here on line 7. So for them, we have 299 Daggett Avenue, Vineyard Haven, Massachusetts, 02568. All right. Now, if there are any questions about this where I haven't actually seen an example where that's happened, you do have the option of putting your telephone number here so that you may be contacted about the information on this form. With individuals, I don't see this, but it would be more likely if you were handling an estate. Okay? So we're going to have the taxpayer sign and date here, and then we're going to have the spouse sign and date here. Now, if you're wanting to change the address for both taxpayers, we need both of their information and both of their signatures on this form. Another way to change the address is to file an updated return. However, if you don't need to file a tax return anytime soon, this is going to be the best method of action to make sure that the address is updated by the next time you go to file your return. Very quickly, this takes about 4 to 6 weeks to process, and it does need to be mailed. So, if this was for an estate gift tax return, it would go to this address here, Department of the Treasury, Internal Revenue Service, Center, Kansas City, Missouri, 64999-0023. But if the box on line 2 was not checked, this is where you would mail it. You would use this chart and you would go based on where the prior mailing address was. Okay, so I am in Kentucky now. I've lived here for 16 and a half, almost 17 years. However, I'm from Indiana. So for me, my original address being in Indiana still goes to the same center as it would for Kentucky. This is the address that I would use. Okay. Now, if I was coming from a foreign country and moving back to the United States, we see here for foreign countries, it needs to get mailed to the office in Austin. All right. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. Make sure that you also subscribe to the channel for more updates for resolving tax issues. This one may seem minor, but in the long run could be very, very helpful. I will see you all in the next video.